what did I say? I said something about
lesbians.
It's a fish.
Yeah.
You said you was going to edit it and you didn't.
No, I didn't. I didn't think we needed to. I thought if we're kind of going to push the boundaries,
well,
we got to include all groups.
Yeah, none of our 7 audience members have complained, so
no,
it's all good. It's all good. So, cool, man. So, Tim, like, good to see you. It's been a while. How's lockdown treating you?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag, really, to be honest with you. I think that you know, much like everyone else, the lack of interaction with people can cause you to suffer a little bit, frankly. However, I mean, normally speaking, you know, pre-COVID, I have a fairly busy schedule. So where we've been limited as to what studio activities we could do, that has given us a little bit more time to catch up with stuff, really, that you never really get a chance. What I was saying to people is, you know, how often do you get a chance to press pause on the world and catch up with all them back burner jobs that you never really get to do? So I've been trying to sort of pivot, I suppose, is, you know, one of the popular terms for it, and just have a fresh look at, you know, the circumstances, what I've got to do, manage my time differently and make the most of it. So in some ways it's been an opportunity, and in other ways it's been really challenging.
How have you found inertia? Have you had any difficulties? Like, because what it was funny, I was listening to a podcast with Jimmy Carr the other day, and he was saying, like, you know, people in normal life, like, normally say, oh yeah, if I had the time, I'd write that screenplay, and if I had the time, I'd write that drum and bass album. And now it's quite funny because we've all got the time, but I think everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people, especially creative people, stuff like that, are suffering a little bit with I wouldn't call it depression, but it's like lethargy. You know what I mean? So have you been all right with that? Or have you found, like, some days you're looking at out the window going, fuck it, what, do you know what I mean?
Mostly. And I mean, I'm big into, you know, mindset, people, you know, how we make sense of the world that we're in, how we communicate and relate to each other, and all of that sort of thing. So I think a lot of people, me included, definitely. You know, the last year, like 2020, when lockdown hit in March, I was kind of like, wow, this is crazy. You know what I mean? This is an exceptional set of circumstances, which, don't get me wrong, you know, I'm not lacking sympathy for those that are kind of, you know, suffering whatever they're suffering. But it's like, when does anything like this ever happen in the world? You know, this is going to bring a whole load of newness. And for me, again, without wanting to sound unsympathetic or unempathetic, because I'm completely the opposite of those things, my answer to just about everything in life is music. And most of the time, when there's a significant event that it moves you, be that for, you know, a good thing or a bad thing. I'm a big believer in, you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So and another like phrase, you know, meme type thing that I love is, as soon as you start looking at a situation, and instead of asking the question, why is this happening to me? If you ask the question, what is this situation trying to teach me? What can I learn from it? Then I think you end up with a completely different perspective. So I think most of 2020, I was kind of like, this is exciting because it's different and it's new, and it kind of brings about opportunities which you wouldn't necessarily have had otherwise. Okay, mate, cool, see you later. So just had a bit of work done at the studio, just wrapping up. But yeah, so coming back into you know, sort of lockdown again, sort of more recently. So just to clarify one or two things about sort of the business. The first lockdown, everything shut, everyone had to close. Yeah. Then as lockdown restrictions were lifted, the rules of engagement, for want of a better term, changed slightly. So professional recording studios and professional filming, which is, you know, two of the main things that we do, is legitimately, you know, it's entitled to continue. Obviously, you need to, you know, be COVID safe, stick with the guidelines, and, you know, we've been disinfecting everything, you know, a lot. So, you know, we've been trying to be safe, but we have been able to trade, as it were. So even though there's been, you know, sort of 3 separate national lockdowns, we've only actually been properly shut down for one of them. And since then, although we've been legally allowed to to trade as such. Everyone else is locked up. So there are a few artists. You know, I've been doing a few one-to-one sessions here and there, and been working, you know, remotely on a few bits and pieces as well. But actually, just this last few weeks or something, I think, you know, maybe the January thing, Christmas weren't that great for me. You know, it's a bit weird, which, you know, normally wouldn't matter because I'm a bit of a bar humbug. So normally Christmas, I'm kind of like, well, Christmas is just a bit of a ball, like, really.
Yeah.
And then because Christmas didn't really happen, it was like, well, we haven't had any of that, you know, having to rush around here, there, everywhere, and make sure you see all members of family and, you know, Christmas shopping and all that caper. It just kind of went out the window. But yeah, I think, you know, over that Christmas period, it's like, need to have a break, need to have a breather. Not a lot going on, but not seeing anyone, not getting any of the love that you get out of Christmas. And in January, I just felt proper mopey, really, to be honest with you. And I guess that, you know, maybe the weather had a contributing factor to that. But yeah, now we're getting to this time of year. February is always a bit of a home straight, feels like for me. It's usually the worst month weather-wise, so you just put your teeth and get through that. But the beginning of March is my birthday, which obviously is an event in my calendar. But traditionally, once my birthday's out of the way, is only 2 or 3 weeks until the clocks go forward, and then you get the sunlight back, and then it probably feels like spring. So, you know, kind of. But yeah, a few weeks ago, I was having a bit of a tough time, felt a bit, you know, down in the mouth, and definitely lethargic and apathetic. But you know, I'm sort of trying to consciously drag myself out of that, make the most of the time that I have got available. Put that into creativity and sort of keep looking forward to summer. We'll be down the harbour arm before long. It won't be long.
That's it, mate. That's it. I think, I'll make you right. I think one of the things is it's you realise. I think the positive is you realise how much shit you can do remotely that you didn't do before, and I like that, and that's nice to know. But it also highlights, and I think you put it beautifully, like the importance of relationships, and even relationships you possibly didn't necessarily value before lockdown. So people who used to go into work and not really give a shit about any of their employees or friends, and then now because they don't have it, they really kind of miss it. So it's like, it's interesting. Phil, I don't know whether you wanted to jump in, but I'm kind of dominating this shit.
No. I mean, it's nice to get that perspective. I wanted to kind of ask Tim a few questions musically, because on the subject of lockdown, I've played guitar since I was about 14 years old, and the one thing that I tend to do is just go straight to playing my guitar. So I pick up a guitar, I play songs, you know, learn songs, and then this is where I was going to come to Tim, and knowing that he was there, my first question was going to be, has he had any sort of new artists, new people like myself, I wouldn't even class myself as an artist, actually get in touch? Because I think that's something that whole next step, having now at the stage of writing my first book and going through that stage, and I've been in studios before with different bands, but actually hearing stuff on local radio and how people are now taking that first step. I wondered if he's had any newbies come into the studio.
Yes, there is definitely at least one guy who didn't really have, you know, much of an appetite as such for the kind of musical side of things per se, but he's put pen to paper, and he had some words, and he's written some bits and pieces. And his partner, I knew, I know his partner, and she suggested that he get hold of me because the conversation between them had been like, nice little, you know, sort of poem type thing. What if it was set to music? And because this fella's partner knew me, she was like, well, talk to Tim. You know, give Tim, you know, just tell him where you're at with it and see what, you know, if anything, because it, you know, it might be not very good, might be it's great as a poem, but it wouldn't work with music and so on and so forth. But yeah, I it was all about lockdown and a certain perspective, shall we say, on the situation, you know, nationally and globally. But yeah, it was inspired certainly by the circumstances. Put pen to paper and then brought it to me, and then I, you know, sort of we jigged a couple of things about just to sort of fit it into a musical format and a context. And I've actually built a track for him, and you know, I put down a rough vocal for him to sort of follow in terms of timing and stuff. And then he redid the vocal, and then we actually put a bit of a video together for it. which was kind of, we just sort of harvested like Creative Commons clips off of YouTube and, you know, that kind of thing that just sort of reflected of the current scenario as it was then. This, I think, could have been April or May, something like that. It was relatively early on in the first lockdown. And then later on that year, one of my other clients who he's been recording for years, but he's got a friend who runs a studio, so he doesn't do his audio recording with me. He might do at some point, but he'll bring a track that is it's an original track that he's written. He's been writing for years, but I do video stuff as well, so I'd help do a similar sort of thing with putting a video sequence together for his track that was, you know, very much well, it's called Lockdown, so same sort of thing. And then another friend of mine, I've had less involvement with this one, but recently had done, you know, almost the same thing. Like, he's got a track which, you know, the subject matter of the track is fairly similar or appropriate to the situation, and so they've done a video sort of reflecting that. So yeah, I kind of felt, you know, good about the fact that we've done the one that we did early doors, like back then, because it's almost like, you know, loads of people kind of jumped on a bandwagon. And I mean, it's been great for me to observe, like you said, Phil, that, you know, picking up a guitar because you've had some time. I don't know if you're a member of the group on Facebook. I spend way too much time on Facebook. But there was a group created called Rock the Lockdown. And it was pretty much specifically for the purposes of people that are enthusiastic hobbyists that, you know, have got some time on their hands, wanted to spend some time with their instrument or their voice, and they're, you know, doing covers for camera. And then the group was huge, massive. I mean, I submitted something for it, which again was, funnily enough, another lockdown track / video, which we'd done, you know, before that. But that wasn't like newbie. That was me and my wife Sophie, who's a singer-songwriter. So we smash tracks out all the time. So that wasn't anything uncommon.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been quite a lot of musical stuff about lockdown. And then it's been great to see so many people have the opportunity to re-engage with their and rekindle that love. I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's my go-to, really. I just pick the guitar up and I sit there and I bore everyone else around me. So yeah, I love it. But my follow-on from that, if that's all right, just quickly, is I'm really into Gomez, the band from the 90s, really. I absolutely love them. And I've watched all sorts of documentaries on them and things like that. And now, because they live so far and wide, what they do, I think they put everything on SoundCloud or something, and they all listen to each other's songs and they go, no, that was rubbish, not doing it. No, I don't like, or I really love that. I've put that over the top, and they add to it. And I was wondering if you've had anything like that over lockdown, where a few people, maybe 3 or 4 people in a band, have sent you stuff, and you just then jiggle around and do your magic, your hokery pokery stuff. And then, you know, is that something that you've managed to? Yeah,
well, funnily enough, Trev, we've been doing a bit of that, haven't we? We managed to get sessions together, but we've been working remotely as much as possible. So yeah, and you know, I think that's worked out really well. But before, you know, get into that, I'm so excited about, you know, Gomez is one of them, you know, bands which is just brilliant, which not enough people know about. They won the Mercury Award, didn't they? In like was it 2000, something like that. For their first album. Yeah, what's their first album called again?
You got Liquid Skin, and the one before that was, or is it Liquid Skin? I can't remember. You got Abandoned Shopping Trolley. Bring It On.
Bring It On, yeah, that's it. So I've got to tell you, January 2019, Sophia and I basically did a road trip up Route 1, up the west coast of California. Started off in Los Angeles and worked our way up to San Fran, and then worked our way back down again. And while I was out there, I was like, I have got to listen to the Gomez album. So, I mean, you know, we're traveling down, you know, Route 1, listening to some sort of classic old American radio stations. So you got everything, you know, the real cheesy classic Sweet Home Alabama and all that sort of thing. So that was really novel. But I was just like, you know, we're looking at maps and stuff, and I'm seeing these place names, and obviously, you know, you got the San Diego and the Mexico connection, but some of the stuff that they talk about in some of their lyrics and things like that. And we stayed at a shitty little motel down the road from Sunset Strip, but it's the same motel that Jim Morrison used to stay at when he played on Sunset Strip. And his bedroom, like the room that he used to use, was not still the same as when he was there. It ain't been redecorated, I can tell you that. I doubt it's even been cleaned, to be fair. But the entire, and I mean every square inch of the room is like sort of graffiti, messages, people drawing portraits of him and all that sort of stuff. And obviously you've got, you know, Whiskey Go just up the road, and you're traveling around all these places, and you kind of, yeah, I've heard that. You know, we did a little video at the end of Santa Monica Boulevard, so you know what Soph was singing with that. Yeah. So, you know, all these little things, and it's like, oh, it just reminded me of that. And I was like, Gomez. And I was like, yes, got to. But I'd forgotten about it. But it's one of them albums or one of them bands, which every now and again, like, you know, someone I know that's got some musical taste, I'll be like, you know about Gomez? You've got to know about Gomez. Don't know about Gomez, go away and listen to the album right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah, so coming back to the actual question, yeah. I mean, most of what I do, I work on my own at times, which I quite enjoy. I'm quite happy with that. But then I work, as I say, I'm married to a singer-songwriter, and you know that's how we got together. I produced her first album. We've been friends and worked together for ages, and then you know things developed later from there. So Sophia and I have got a good, you know, professional working relationship. And a great marriage. That wasn't a subject.
Let's do that in case she listens. You know what I
mean? Yeah. Can I put a disclaimer on the screen just to be right? Yeah.
We'll work it out. We'll work that out. Don't worry. Yeah.
Yeah. So I haven't really had to work that much remotely. I mean, before she and I were together, I mean, there was a time where I used to kind of cry out for vocalists to work with. And that's how I met her. When I first moved back to Ashford from London a few years ago, I said to a friend of mine, you know, I'd lost my job in the credit crunch, and the universe was giving me a nudge to get back to music. So I had time, which, you know, I hadn't had for a little while. Living in London's obviously quite costly and all that sort of thing. So that's how I lost my job, had to go elsewhere, came back down to Kent. It was a lot cheaper to live. And it just, you know, I had a sort of little briefing. And I had time and said to a friend of mine, I need a vocalist to work with. And he said, there's only one person around here really that's worth putting in front of you. I'll get her number. And then things kind of, you know.
Phil, have you lost Tim?
There. So
yeah.
Huh?
Sorry, we
lost you a little bit, the last bit there.
He's had enough.
Oh.
Yeah, it's definitely him, innit? Because you and me are all right.
Yeah, I can still hear and see you.
Like 20 questions I've got to ask him.
Yeah.
Tim!
Sounds like he's there.
Yeah, he's about, isn't he? Happened a bit earlier, I think.
Am I back?
Yeah, man. We can sort. You keep coming in and out. Oh, there he is. Hello. Oh. Mate, a fellow Gomez fan, eh?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. Yeah, how cool is that?
Yeah.
Tim,
you're back.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's cool.
We lost you. Mate, where were you? So are you living in Ashford now?
No, I'm in Folkestone now.
Yeah.
So I was living in Ashford for a while. We had the opportunity to set this place up, Seaview Studio, about 3 and a bit years ago. So we've been, you know, sort of operating in Folkestone for the last 3 years. And thankfully, just before lockdown kicked in last year, in fact, yesterday, no, what's the date today? 17th. Yeah,
17th.
1 year to the day that we moved to Folkestone.
Hey, very good, man.
Congratulations.
That's right.
Thanks very much. And it's double idea. That the reason that's such a big deal for us, I mean, we've got a massive amount of love for Folkestone. Folkestone is the world's first music town, so it's fabulous to be a part of that. But obviously, you know, to-ing and fro-ing, you know, commuting to Ashford is a bit time-consuming and tedious and a bit costly. But now I can pretty much see my house from the studio car park. So it's 100 yards away. So, you know, coming to work is, you know, I can nip home to use the loo if I want to. It's that close. So that makes a massive amount of difference to kind of again, going back to the overall sort of mindset and well-being, it's great to know that I've kind of got everything that I need on my doorstep. And if I am feeling a bit down in the mouth or lack of inspiration or something, then we just pop to the seaside.
Yeah.
A couple of minutes down the road, look out to sea, or go up the hills and get a sense of panorama and a sense of perspective. And I think it helps you put things back in place. So it helps you reset a little bit.
Do you know why the sea gives you a sense of well-being, Tim?
Go on.
Well, the theory is that because our lives are so busy and cluttered, right? We've always got things in our vision, peripheral, whatever. Because when you look out to sea, there is literally nothing. You relax. You naturally, do you know what I mean? So the subconscious goes, "I haven't got to fucking worry about that threat there or that there," or do you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of like a genetic thing over time. So yeah, man, it does. It sets you right, didn't it? The sea.
Yeah, I reckon so. And Stove has always said the same thing, you know, Stove being by the sea and all of that. And, you know, from our bedroom window, well, any of the back windows of the house, you know, every morning you sort of wake up, draw the curtains, you just got the sea. And, you know, if it's a clear sunny day, you can see France. And, you know, like I say, it's a year to the day. And I'm still saying to Stove, you know, it's like, it's all right, this holiday, isn't it? Because it just feels like we're on holiday every day, you know?
Yeah. Living a dream, buddy. You're living a dream. I like that, mate. You touched briefly on Folkestone Music Town. Can you want to tell us a little bit about your involvement? Well, what it is for people who don't know, and like what your involvement kind of was in it.
Yeah, cool. So there are various cities across the world which are kind of recognised for their music and culture and entertainment. So I mean, there'll be some obvious things like you know, Berlin, you know, London. San Francisco, Detroit. I mean, there's, you know, Detroit House and stuff like that. So there are certain cities. I mean, Bristol's got to be on that list as well. There are certain bits of music which are kind of born out of certain cities, and those cities, Nashville and that, you know, are just synonymous with music.
Dublin, maybe,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's the same sort of principle, but on a smaller scale. So, lady who lives locally, who does an awful lot for the community and music in general and well-being. Dr. Julia Jones, aka Dr. Rock. She's lovely, but she's in a travel and tourism summit with the United Nations in Cape Town in early 2017, I think, January, February time. And basically, what she was explaining is that if you look at how a city or a community operates, then a healthy music scene and nightlife means that people of a certain demographic are sort of kept entertained. You know, there's something to do. People will go to work Monday, Friday on the grind. You know, on a Friday, Saturday night, they probably want to go out have some dinner. After that, maybe they want to go and enjoy some music, have a couple of drinks at a bar. And, you know, so if you don't have a lively culture, if there's nowhere to go, then those people are going to go to different, and eventually they're going to move down to the city. And that they're not spending money in, you know, local restaurants with.
We lost him again, Phil.
Yeah, we have, I think. Yeah.
Seaside town, which is really youngsters that got nothing.
His thumbs get ready.
Of old people that are, you know, in their.
See, we keep losing you, buddy.
Yeah.
Is everything all right?
Yeah, I think the internet's just been a little bit funny today. Like it will be fine for a little while, and then it just does a quick moment, drops out, and then comes back in again. Like nothing happens, nothing serious. But obviously, if you're in process,
no worries.
Something does happen. Yeah.
So, mate, just run us through your obviously the Folkestone Music Town. How did you get involved? What was your input into that, mate?
So,
you quite a bit with that.
Well, basically, since coming to Folkestone, you know, Sophia and I had kind of made it a point that we need to understand who's who, what's going on, where can we help, how can we support, what can we do, and all of that. So the going back to you know, like using basically looking at community, how it works, how it operates. Using Folkestone as a bit of a case study was where it started, and so meetings were organised to involve all sort of people that are involved in the industry. So it could be promoters, venue owners, you know, bands, performers, singers, studio, rehearsal room owners, basically anything which is happening music-wise in the town. We sort of get together, discuss what's going on. A couple of years ago, there was like, you know, Hendrix weekend to commemorate Jimi Hendrix's birthday because he played in Folkestone a couple of times. The bassist from Jimi Hendrix.
I taught Lace,
you know, down the
his niece. I taught Lace Redding.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
wicked.
Yeah. I know Merlin, his nephew. I think he was in my sister's class at school or something. But yeah, so there with that connection. But that was kind of like a town-wide initiative, so that, you know, people could kind of get involved. And the idea being that it makes folks a bit of a destination for music and current art. So if there's a sense of cohesion as to what's going on in the town, then the offering in general will be much better for, you know, local people and out of towners. So it's about trying to make sure that everyone else knows what's going on, so that, you know, there's no kind of clashing or unnecessarily competition. I mean, there's things like, you know, the Ska weekend. You know, that's been going for 10 odd years or something. But there are certain events which occur which are kind of multi-venue events, and if they're sort of different priorities here and there, then you kind of need that sort of that communication. Yeah, it's just about trying to get everyone together, get everyone, for want of a better term, singing off the same hymn sheet, and to try and make sure that the most important thing is the community, the town, the culture that's here. So rather than everyone, you know, trying to just do their own thing, it's better if everyone's, you know, kind of aware of what everyone else is doing, can combine and support each other. And then I think if you add things together, you get something which is, you know, the sum of which is greater than the individual parts.
Yeah.
So anything which I can do personally, and I still do, to try and connect people. So, for example, if I've got like later today, I've got a one-to-one session with a guy who does hip hop. He's a hip hop MC. I work with a bunch of hip hop MCs from Folkestone, and this guy's from Whitstable Way. So I'm, you know, whenever I see people that are in a similar sort of place, I'm like, oh, do you know about this? Do you know about that? And you know, this is going on. There's this event, this radio show, and you ought to be in touch with this person.
Yeah.
And so trying to get people connected to get that sense of community. And I think, you know, the output, the product is better. You have some, you know, collabs pop up out of nowhere, and there's a great tune, or there's a new music video, or there's a new event. But it's just from, you know, putting two people together to get to have a conversation because they've got similar interests, but they weren't aware of each other previously.
I think, do you know what, and I'll commend that, because I think that like anything, we need community to build anything, and I think that's there is certainly a very strong music community in Folkestone, and there are some great individuals doing some wonderful things. I'm going to ask you a slightly controversial question, mate, because as you know, I had a venue for a time in Folkestone, and I was very concerned, and I wasn't the only one, about the kind of regeneration of Folkestone, in the sense that, was it, and I don't know how you feel about this, like the input seemed to be very much on kind of modern, trendy, dare I say, swanky wanky East London eatery type vibes, artisan stuff, which is fine, mate, and I'm all about that. It's great and lovely. But when I came to Folkestone initially, sort of 6 years ago, 2014, we had the Banksy, we had Kenzie's, which, although wasn't the classiest of music venues, it catered for a dance crowd, and had different nights like drum and bass and stuff like that. My question really is, as much as I think people like yourself, Julia Jones, etc., they're doing great things for Folkestone, are the powers that be doing enough venue-wise? Because again, like, I will shut up in a minute, but like, I had a venue, I had loads of musicians, and I always could find quality musicians. I could always pack the venue out. But for instance, are there enough venues? Are they giving the licenses essentially to allow it to flow? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And obviously, you know, your experience means you've got probably better first-hand insight at the challenges and risks of, you know, running venues. I've promoted parties and stuff before, but that's without the sort of the responsibility and the burden of the, you know, kind of not so much in the way of staff costs and, you know, bills and overheads and the rest of it. It's like kind of like a one-off event. You know, you get a budget together to make sure your people get paid. You know what your break-even point is. You know what your capacity is, and then it's just a case of promoting it. So in a lot of ways, that's a lot easier. So, you know, but from an outside point of view, as someone who looks, and to be brutally honest with you, I'll say it carefully because I don't want to infer or be seen to infer in anything that might upset anyone in particular. I'm not leveling this to anyone at all. I think folks are missing a really good nightclub. And that's not, you know, I mean, I've been to most, probably all of the venues, but I think there are certain scales and sizes of venues that work for certain offerings and certain propositions. So the Brennan-John-C crowd, you know, I love that. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Regeneration, moving forward. I understand people have got concerns about, you know, what might happen if you change things about the town. But frankly, good.
Yeah.
I used to hate Folkestone. I really did. Yeah. For years and years and years, I went to secondary school here. There was a few situations and a few people that I was quite happy to leave behind. And, you know, 15 odd years ago, frankly, the town was on its arse. So to see it on the up and up is great. And I had to sort of have a chat with myself when the opportunity came up to come here, because I'm like, well, we've got to reevaluate Folkestone now, because what's in my mind about what does Folkestone mean is 10, 15, 20 years maybe out of date. So I've got to look at it with, you know, a current head and, you know, whatever wisdom if I've accrued any over the years. But yeah, so we do events, you know, obviously Sophie's a singer-songwriter. She loves to perform. She does nothing more than prancing around on stage, singing her little heart out, and that's exactly where she should be. Me, I miss DJing personally. And, you know, when there are events and stuff going on, obviously those playing out, then I do the live bits and pieces. So I've always got an eye out for venues. Well, I can't help but walk into anywhere and immediately see what sound system they've got, how it's being managed, where the crowd would be, where the artist would be, how the traffic would flow in between that, and does that make for a conducive ambience for what kind of performance? Because I think sometimes the ideal performance is where people, are you aware of Hush? Trev Wyatt was doing some events at Aletto upstairs. And I love this concept. It was called Hush because basically the idea was if you come in to listen to the artist, to put your phone away and shut up. Take it in. Yeah?
Neil Young style. Yeah.
And so I absolutely love that. But the reality is that whilst there is the corner for that, a need for that, and there's a niche for that, there are similar kind of events people try and put on in a place where really what people want to go is go and have a natter, but they don't want it to be quiet in the background. So sometimes I would question whether it's worth having live music, or if you're going to have live music, understand that. The point is, I mean, I've seen some situations before where the person on stage is playing and they've stopped playing to tell someone in the corner to stop talking.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, oh, it's not really that kind of event, is it? If they pay 15, 20 quid to come and see you, then maybe you've got a point. Yeah. But if you're a bit of background noise in a bar where people are coming to converse and socialise, you've got to deal with that.
Yeah.
Put up with it, or don't play, or go and play somewhere else. But you know, you can't. I think the point I'm getting at is you can't manage people's experience or tell them what they've got to have or what they want. You can create an environment. It's a little bit like, you know, the Woodstock thing, innit? Build it and they will come. But whilst there are, you know, some nights that go on and all of that, I mean, I when I was a youngster, I used to go to Atomics in Maidstone like regular, like, you know, second home. Absolutely loved it. You didn't even need to know, you know, if there was a flyer or who was playing or what was going on. You just knew that if you went there, there would be so many people, massive sound systems, some great DJs, and everyone would have a great party. And it was like that week in, week out. And I used to run a party in Leicester called Sonic Boom, which was similar. It's a smaller place than Atomics. I can't remember what Atomics' capacity is, probably about 1,000 or something, maybe 1,500 if you include upstairs. But yeah, 300 to 400. Actually, I can tell you specifically, the capacity was 380. for fire regulation. I won't tell you how many people we had in the building when Andy C played, but there was more than that. But yeah, there was. Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, I was panicking a little bit about that, because that week on the Thursday we had Ronnie Size, which was the ticketing event, so there was no way of that going over capacity. But then 2 days later on the Saturday we had Andy C. And it's like, are we going to be able to fill the club having two? They're great artists, but by having them so close together, is one going to rob the other? But yeah, Ronnie Size was sell out. Andy C was over capacity.
Double.
They were both wicked parties. But Sonic Boom was another one where you just knew that when there was, it wasn't a weekly, it was a monthly, but during term time, because this is kind of a university town, so the population decreases a lot during summer. Yeah. So you probably have nine dues a year, but every time you knew it was like, it's like a headliner, couple of local artists, and because it'd been going for a little while, I think that's part of it. But it was the right size venue. The bar was kind of separate enough where it needed to be. There was somewhere to go and sit if you needed to. So it kind of ticked a lot of boxes as to how a night should be. So that worked really well. Folkestone, I think, is missing that. I don't think there's anywhere quite like that. Chambers is probably the closest, I would say. But and they do their thing. But I'd say Chambers is a bit more. Covers a wider diversity of things. Whereas I think Folkestone could do with a club which just has maybe a housey night one night, maybe an 80s night another night. I want to do a drum and bass night. I know that the hip hop night would go down well. So a club which is more focused on specialist / underground kind of genres, because frankly I think that's where the envelope for music in general gets pushed. So I think if there isn't scope for people to be able to, talking about from my point of view, if I make a track that I'm really excited about, that doesn't really mean much. If I put it down to a crowd and everyone starts bouncing and starts calling for the rewind, I know that's a decent track. So, having that road test, that little testing ground, and building a sense of identity and community around that, some of the specialists, means that they get to develop and hone their craft and push themselves forward, and then you move things on. But then that's the kind of stuff which ends up getting filtered down. I don't want to say watered down, filtered down into more commercial and pop music type genres. So I think the more general, the mainstream clubs, if you like, the clubs which are playing sort of mainstream music, will suffer massively. Music will suffer massively if the underground scenes don't have the opportunity to survive.
100%.
I think, mate, you make some very valid points, and I think I would say a couple of things like in response to that. Like, firstly, like you and I both have a vested interest in Folkestone, and I think it's important that you feel like you can say what you want without, because you care about it and you're passionate about it. And like, my books are based in Folkestone, and I so it is important to me as well, and I care about it a great deal. I think that what you're saying is absolutely right, and I think that, like, I got up in South East London, and we went to the venue in New Cross. Right now, the venue in New Cross had 5 floors, so you knew which floor you needed to go to get what you wanted, and it would start off fairly fairly vanilla, like maybe if you're on the rock floor, it might have a little band, whatever, early doors, and then by 2 o'clock in the morning, it's fucking like bonkers, House of Pain jumping around, and each floor would have that kind of vibe. So I hear what you're saying, and that is exactly I haven't got an issue with Folkestone, but I think Chambers is the best on show. Do you know what I mean? That is not criticising anyone or great. It does a great thing for the town. I can't, I'm not denying that. However, it can't do everything, and it would be nice to have. It'd be nice to say, right, Tim, Phil, I really want to go and listen to some fucking techno, right? This is the night we're going to do it, and we know where we're going to go. And we don't. I'm not sure every town has that. You know what I mean? But like you say, Maidstone, Ashford have come to a certain degree. I mean, they've got their places, and I think sometimes but we miss the point a little bit with folks. And that's, it's not me being critical. I can see what you're saying. It would be nice to have somewhere where you knew that venue has that thing, and that venue has that thing, and that's, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a bit more coherent. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff going on. I wonder whether it's coherent enough. Phil, sorry, Matt, I thought I jumped in. Phil, did you want to say anything?
No, not at all. The only thing that I was going to pick up on something Tim said earlier was the last band I was in was a weddings function band, and we used to do 3 sets. And the first set, we knew that nobody had drunk enough, so it was all like Sade and all the kind of stuff you didn't really want to play. And then you'd have a break, and you know that you're probably just eaten, so you wouldn't get too many up on there. So you do like the Baby When You're Gone's and things like that. The last set, everyone was drunk. The people that were staying there were going to be dancing. So that's when you did the Walking on Sunshines and Mustang Sallies and things. So yeah, you play to what you've got, really. And yeah, it was quite funny to hear you say that about someone stopping halfway through to tell someone to be quiet to listen. Yeah.
I'm anxious about time. Sorry, mate. Sorry. Just anxious about time, so we touched a little bit on we haven't really, because this is how professional we are, we haven't actually really told people what you do. I mean, from my perspective, I refer to Tim now as Gandalf because he is the magic man. He's the man with the magic fingers. And there's no sexual there's no sexual illusions there. Like, I mean, like, from my perspective, you know, we've worked on stuff over the course of probably, I don't know, 6 months or well, I don't know how long it is now, because lockdown's just what's time anymore. But yeah, we've done some, you know, the track that I'm releasing on February the 26th, to Paradise. I mean, I'm fucking pumped by it, and you know, I think you are as well a little bit, Tim. And I think it's, you know, I think it's a really good thing. You know, I'm really buzzed. But mate, do you want to tell people about Technical Finger and then about Seaview Studios, about the different, because you're a master of a lot of trades in my view, Tim. So, do you know what I mean?
Well, I might be jack of a few, mastering. I'm working on that. So yeah, just a sort of a potted history, really. I kind of started out DJing, and then, you know, fairly soon after starting DJing, this is when I'm like, you know, 18, 19 time. And got on really well with that. I mean, I've been going out raving, you know, since I was sort of 15, warehouse parties and all that sort of stuff. I was absolutely smitten with the culture. I'm a speaker hugger. So I started, you know, DJing, which seemed like a logical progression, was actually quite good at it. And then the next logical progression was how to make beats. So I went into academia, and then went to university. So I'm a music producer, and I without going into too much detail, I use that term specifically because that's not the same thing as a beat maker. It's a difference. So there's oodles of people out there that claim to be a producer, whereas, you know, what that means to them is they, you know, sit with a laptop in their bedroom and program some stuff and come up with a tune, which is music production to a degree, but, you know, that's kind of beat making. And if you're working on your own, then, you know, it's a hell of a lot easier sometimes than working with other people. So I'm a music producer. I work with bands. I work with solo artists. I work with people that are sort of vocals only, for example. And, you know, I work collaboratively with people. So I work on my own. So as you say, my artist name is Technical Finger. I used to play and release drum and bass under the name Dirty Fingers. So I thought I'd, you know, clean that up a little bit and make that a little bit more mainstream. But I kind of made a conscious choice a number of years ago that drum and bass was unlikely to make me a millionaire. You know, I was playing out, promoting parties, and releasing tracks. But, you know, when you think about the tracks that I'm making and releasing, the idea is that I'm selling them to other DJs. So generally it's, you know, bits of vinyl back then, but vinyl was already on the decline. It's like, well, eventually vinyl's going to disappear pretty much altogether. No one wants to pay for music anymore. So it's very difficult to make any actual money from selling music directly to the public, because they'll want to, you know, beg, borrow or steal it, or, you know, get it on YouTube or something. But the generation gap, if you like, means that there's a genuine naivety and ignorance of the perception as to what the value of music should be. So anyway, I mean, I started, you know, as an independent artist, releasing my own bits and pieces through, you know, independent record labels, working with vocalists here and there, and then it's always been my dream to have a one-stop shop for musicians. So basically, creative types tend to fit a certain thing. That, you know, they've got loads of ideas, and they want to use, you know, these ideas and fill around. But then once they've poured life, soul, and heart into their creativity is the product, they kind of want to feel like their job is done.
Yeah.
But if you want to make it, or you know, if you want to anything like a career or an audience in music, there's an awful lot more legwork to be done. So you know, things like social media and administration of your work. So you know, if you want to release things on Spotify, iTunes, all that sort of thing, there's some mundane admin tasks and all these bits and pieces. You know, you need artwork. Maybe you need someone to do some social media stuff, or you build a website, any of that kind of thing. But the idea that I've always had is that if someone like you, Trev, for example, yeah, you've got an idea, you've got the bones at least of a track together, and you need to take it from that point to being available to the public in a nice, shiny, glitzy product. But that bit from there to there, you're probably not all that keen on doing, or haven't got the skills to do, and it might take a lot of time or a lot of money to get to that point. So rather than come to the studio to get recorded, go to a videographer to get a video done, go to a social media expert to develop your online presence, go to someone else for this, go to someone else for that, so on and so forth. If we've got different aspects of our operation, which mean that you can just come to us with your ideas and we help you go the rest of the way by either doing it for you or holding your hand through the process, I think that's a massive enabler for you know, semi-pro and wannabe musicians and people that are starting out and aspiring. So we managed to, we're in process of doing that. I mean, Seaview Studio is kind of becoming that. We can offer an awful lot of services. The most recent thing that we've been looking at is, you know, music publishing. So helping people get their music into adverts, Netflix series, films, you know, TV, corporate videos, you know, that kind of thing. Because it's one of the few corners where there's still a bit of money left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you could have great musical ideas, but as we say in the music industry, talent is never enough. Yeah, you need a network and a team of people around you, and relationships with people that do perhaps some less interesting tasks for you. They might be brilliant at it, might love it, but generally, creative people are kind of sensitive and don't really want to do data-led tasks, and don't really want to, you know, conform to like a routine and a pattern. But the behaviours which need to be exhibited to make a business work are not necessarily the most prevalent behaviours out of the creative side. So trying to bridge that gap is something which is important to both of us, and that's what Seaview Studio is kind of trying to, the service is trying to offer and represent.
You've got, that's well explained, mate. Yeah, we've kind of done this podcast in sort of reverse order. We should have done that at the start. It's kind of got it backwards, but fuck it, don't matter. Yeah, I mean, I think you offer great service. You've got a bit of both, mate, haven't you, really? Because you've got the sort of data-y, you understand sort of what I'd call analytical, mathematical side of stuff, and music is kind of maths, people tell me, although I'm still not convinced. Whereas like most people have one or the other. So like, yeah, I like the creative, like I like to write the book or write the song, play it and do it, and then that's it. I don't want to know about it. It goes to the editor, it goes to the producer, whatever, and I want you to kind of do the magic dust thing, and then it goes out. You know what I mean? So I think you've got a bit of both, because you can hear the track and go, and it's interesting because there's a whole other podcast which I want to do, which I hope you can do with me, and talk a bit more deeper about the ideas of music and well-being and theories, because I know you've got some interesting ideas about all that stuff. But it's like I don't think you can teach this, and it's that kind of ability to listen to something and go, to me, it's there. Like I can see where it's going to go, and I can see how it's going to end up. Or you listen to something and go, nah. And it's like that old-fashioned idea of like, you know, Motown, and so it's a hit or it's not a hit, you know what I mean? But you can kind of, it's a bit broader than that, I think, what you do, in the sense of you can go, I can turn this into that, or I can, you know, turn this bit of coal into a diamond, or whatever it is. And I think that's you know, it's an amazing talent. And like you say, yeah, it's an enabling thing, and it's long may it last, mate. It's really nice.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And I think you're right. I mean, I've always felt like exactly what you're talking about now. If I have a gift of any kind, it's that. Yeah. And I think, you know, going back to the difference between sort of creative types and non-creative types, you know, I like to understand biology, physiology, and all that sort of stuff. And people are generally tend towards one side of the brain or the other. You know, the left being more logic, the right being more creative. I think I'm fairly well balanced between the two, which allows me to explore that creativity, but it also keeps me up, keep a foot on the ground, and sort of, you know, keep a sense of perspective. Whereas some creatives can, you know, they'll have an idea, but then they're off in the ether and they've kind of, you know, it's stuff can get lost that way. So sometimes I see myself as a little bit of an anchor to make sure that, you know, the idea isn't falling and then goes and disappears. But yeah, I mean, I've always, it reminds me actually what you're talking about. I mentioned the podcast series to you the other week. I don't know if you've been watching any of that, but there's, when you're writing music, and this might be the same for, I would guess, for artists like, you know, drawing and painting, and book writing probably more so, is that you, when you've got the creative process, just dump it all out. Just get it all out, put your idea down, and you write with your heart.
Yeah.
Put out there what you're feeling, and you make sure that that's the most important thing. That's all that matters right then. You don't edit, you don't do anything, you just gush and let it all out, because that's where the good stuff is. Yeah. But the problem is that that good stuff is in amongst a whole load of other stuff, which, you know, is going to cloud muddy the waters a little bit. So you write with your heart, but then you go back and craft with your head. And then when you're crafting, you're trying to make decisions which are based more on logic and, you know, perhaps experience and things like that, rather than just, oh, I've got this idea that's coming into my head, let's try that.
Yeah.
So you do all that trying and you chuck it all at the canvas, for want of a better term. And a bit of advice that I always give people when they're about, I think I've probably even said this to you, Trev, recently, is that it's a great idea when you're building a track to keep putting ideas into it, keep putting ideas in until it gets to a point where taking ideas out is what makes it sound better. Then you end up with the cream of the crop. Frankly.
Yeah.
There's two very different processes. When you're emoting, when you're, you know, your creative juices are flowing and all of that, then yeah, you just got to let that happen. But you've also got to know that at some point later you've got to go back and process and refine that with a different hat on and say, right, we keep this bit, we get rid of that bit. Where's this going? Is it coherent? Does it conform to certain standards? I don't like using the word formula, but does it sound like it fits with certain things? And there are, you know, in music, especially commercial music, there are some things which you kind of have to understand about, because if you don't build a piece of music like that, then you are narrowing or limiting your audience and exposure immediately. So it's something you kind of have to be conscious of during the writing process. But if you know, So's working on some chords and singing a top line, she's not thinking about this track needs to be 2 minutes and 30 seconds and it needs to be, you know, 120 BPM and we need to have a, you know, two chords, so on and so forth. You just write what you feel, and then you go back it afterwards when you've got enough of the feeling in there and it feels like there's something exciting in there. That's when you sort of switch over to the left side of your brain and say, right, is this working? If it's not working, why is it not working? And what needs to happen to make it, bring it that last bit to get it past the finish.
Beautiful, man. I mean, that's it. That is it.
Can I jump in there? Oh, sorry, go on. All I wanted to say was on Netflix, they've got these artists that break down their songs. And it's where I discovered Dua Lipa, because I'm only 44 years old and I've never, ever heard of her before. And she went through the whole process of writing this one particular song. And she said originally she had one hook line in her head that she just thought I wanted to get in. And then she called up like the two people that she worked with, and they kind of worked, one worked with melodies, one worked the chords, and they had this going around. And from there, it was just like a creative journey of like, that'll fit with that. One of them started singing something, yeah, that works. And they started singing hot damn or something. And she's like, no, I'm not singing that. It's got to be goddamn. So it kind of worked. And they just kind of threw it all in there and then started, like you say, peeling back bits to get to where they were. It was just incredible. For what you've just said there is, yeah, kind of hashtag inspirational.
I think it's quite straightforward. I mean, to a normal process, like for us to write a track, would be like most often Sophie sat at the piano. Like I say, we work a lot together. But if I'm working on my own, then I'll work in a similar kind of fashion. Start, you know, maybe feeling around for some chords. Oh, that's a nice chord. That's a nice progression. And then that will trigger an idea. Don't worry about words yet. You start to and then you start getting certain mouth shapes. So if you think about the vowels, so you might go ooh, it might be an ah or an e. Certain bits of that aren't going to fit in certain melodies and certain rhythms, and other ones are. So once you start getting a few mouth shapes, that then starts suggesting what a few words might be. And if you've got a bit of a chord progression, you're starting to get a feel as to whether that song's going to be happy or sad or angry or whatever. And then you start matching the mouth shapes to what you're effectively just kind of scatting. You just but then it starts to suggest what some of those words might be. So then you start kind of working backwards. But I love what you're saying about, you just had this one thing because yeah, go on.
Yeah, her thing was I sink my teeth in disbelief. That line was just the line that she started in and worked with that, and he just kind of flew from there. Really, was fantastic.
Well, I think it's that is how it starts, and I think that's a really important bit of the process is to recognise that. And again, like I'm saying, maybe if I've got a gift, then recognising those bits of honey in a track is what I'm good at. So it's a process which I lovingly refer to as sharpening my axe. So what tends to happen is that people will bring me a track, and in their mind, maybe it's finished or whatever, and I'll go through it and I'll be like, right, there's a good bit, there's a good bit, there's a good bit. Wait, chop it all up into bits and pieces. Let's lose all of that. Let's go back to that one hook or those three hooks, which are, you've got a ring fence. They absolutely have got to be in the track. But if some of the other stuff around it isn't supporting it right, let's get rid of that. Let's take it back to the bare bones of some hook ideas which are really strong, and then rebuild it from there.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, we're touching on like stuff that what I'd like to do, Tim, if I can nail you down, is do another one, but because I haven't asked you any of the questions about I wanted to about theory and about like your study into music and your interest in exercise and the brain and all that, because really this is technically a podcast about well-being. So like that, I think if we can find time at some stage in the future, I'd love to go back and do another one if you're happy to do that about that sort of stuff. Also, I'd love to get Soph on as well, in addition, at some stage. So if you're happy with all that, mate, that'd be marvellous. But I'm acutely aware of time, and you know what I mean. We've done a good hour, so I don't want to take the piss. You know what I mean?
That's all right. That's good. I'd love to do another one. And actually, I haven't watched many of these YouTube. I know there are some videos on Netflix. Sorry, I've watched a few YouTube videos about some pieces because even though I've got qualifications and have been doing this for a long time on the mindset thing and on the health and well-being thing, I think it's that old adage, ain't it? You don't stop dancing because you get old. You get old because you stop dancing. Unless you keep developing yourself, you keep trying to learn stuff, you keep looking for freshness and newness, then you start getting a little bit tired and stale. And especially like with music production, especially the way things move so fast. So I think pushing yourself to constantly learn, keeping education, keeping self-development, keeps you fresh, keeps you happy, keeps you moving forward. It's just the way to go. So, like I say, although I teach people music production and I've had online tutorials and bits and pieces myself, I still go and watch other people. I still pay attention to what other people are doing. And even if I'm doing stuff exactly the same way as they are, to give you an example, I watched a vocal production session with T-Pain's producer a few months ago. And I'm sitting there watching, I'm going, I do that. I use that. Yeah, I've got, and his chain was basically almost exactly the same that I have on my vocal chain on here, with one or two slight differences. So after the video, I messaged him on Instagram. Like, what's he using on this? What does T-Pain use on that? And he's like, he uses this and this is the setting that he uses. And I was like, I've talked to myself. I knew he was going to say that, but I thought I'd go back over and ask. But yeah, so we could do another one, and if you want, I'll give you one of my tracks and I can break down, if I put it on this machine, I can share a screen with you and I can show you a few bits and pieces on the more, production side of things. If you wanted, we could do that.
I think we should, mate. I think we should.
Awesome.
I'm hoping in the not too distant future, I'll be sitting with you in the studio, with any luck, mate. Hopefully working on them 2 new tracks or something. But yes, hopefully we'll be together. But mate, I mean that 100%. I think without getting cringy, mate, as always, I enjoy talking to you very much. I find it very inspirational. So thank you for your time. And I shall see you in the future.
Thank you both very much indeed. It's always a pleasure to talk. Lovely to meet you, Phil. And yeah, it's always great talking to you, mate, as well. I find it inspirational.
Lovely to meet you too.
I love positive mindsets and people with positive attitudes. And I'll just quickly before I go, talking about Netflix, watched something last night and it was all about consciousness. I don't know whether you've seen that yet, but it's kind of to do with people are trying to measure physically the energies which sort of people produce and all of that. And there is definitely, if you look at things like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, all that sort of stuff, there's lots of, it's early days, there's not massive amount of science around it, but there's things where just by being in the same room as someone else, there's an energy transfer and all that sort of thing. So, I think that's the bit which lockdown has kind of got in the way of, because you must have friends and family, when they walk in the room, you just smile, you just feel better.
Positive energies,
There's probably a physiological response from that rather than just a kind of placebo effect or a perceived thing. There's not as much of a detachment as perhaps we think. Getting together with people that are full of positivity and full of creativity just tops up my creative juices. So anytime.
This is good. And when we get together, you can make the East Kent branch of the Gomez fan club. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm up for that. I'm up for that.
What was that program called, Tim, on Netflix?
Oh man,
text me, mate. If you find it, text me. Is that one?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it's called on top of it, but I'll be able to find it on my recently playlist or something, and I'll give you the details. It's worth a watch. It's worth a watch. But it's entirely this area of we've got all this electricity floating around our brains, and we've got this feeling, and they seem to be disconnected somehow, but actually they're all connected, and we're all connected to each other. Yeah. And it's that mutual kind of consciousness which exists in the universe as a whole. It's really thought provoking. But good energy, and sometimes I can get a little bit of that through Zoom as well. So thank you.
That's good, man. No, I'm pleased.
Brilliant.
Right, mate. I love you lots. I'll see you soon. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
See you later.
Cheers, mate.
Ta-da.